I'm Judah. They call us African Americans today. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Benjamin. They call us West Indians now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Levi. They call us Haitians now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Ephraim. They call us Puerto Ricans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Manasseh. They call us Cubans now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Simeon. They call us Dominicans now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Zebulon. They call us Hondurans and Guatemalans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Gad. They call us Native Americans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Reuben. They call us Seminoles. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Asher. They call us Colombians. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Issachar. They call us Mexicans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now. I'm Naphtali. They call us Chileans and Argentinians. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
All praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahawah, Bahasham HAMASHAYACH Yahawashi, who is the Son of the Most High, Yahawah. I'm going to explain more proofs about the 10 tribes who migrated to the Americas. There were many waves of journeys to the Americas, but most of the journeys, whether by Phoenicians or Carthaginians, which the Hebrews were, with both companies. But what gets me, it seems that they were always ending up in the Americas by accident, or, most importantly, by the will of the Most High, which some people call him God. The main source of knowing that the 10 tribes came to the Americas is by biblical proofs, like in the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 10. You could go to like 21 and 22. Also in the Apocrypha, the King James Version, 2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 41, on down to 50. You can't ignore these proofs. You can't read the Apocrypha and believe everything else in the Apocrypha and not believe 2 Ezra 13. You just can't do it. And you also can't believe that 2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 41 is talking about Africa when people are already dwelling in Africa. This is talking about a land which no man ever been to. No man dwells, what it says. Other sources which we cannot ignore, even though some people do ignore because they don't believe in the Bible. But we can also check some of the resources of the explorers from the 16th and the 19th century. So let's look at one of those resources. My job is to enlighten you to the truth, because the truth will set you free. And so that's why I keep going through the 12 tribes of Israel, because the 12 tribes of Israel is what the whole world is all about. God's chosen people are the missing link to the Most High returning back on the earth. They are the missing link, and my job is to help you find out where they went and who they are. So here's a book called The Aztecs. The Aztecs. The History of the Indies of New Spain by Fray Diego Duran. Now, this book was copyrighted by Orion Press Incorporated in 1964. We're going to jump over to the first chapter and page 3. Let's read the top. Which treats of the possible place of origin of the Indians of the Indies and mainland of this new world. I'm going to read this first paragraph. In order to discuss the real and truthful account of the origin and beginnings of these Indian nations, so mysterious and remote to us, and to discover the real truth about them, some divine revelation or spirit of the Most High would be needed. I'm going to say Most High for God. However, Lacking this, it will be necessary to make conjectures and reach conclusions through the many proofs that these people give us with their strange ways and manner of conduct and their lowly conversation, so like that of the Hebrews. Because of their nature, we could almost affirm that they are what? Jews, meaning Israelites, and Hebrew people. And I believe that I would not be committing a great error if I were to state this fact, considering their way of life, their ceremonies, their rites and superstitions, their omens, and false dealings, meaning when they break God's laws, the Most High's laws, so related to and characteristic of those of the Israelites, the Jews. The Holy Scripture is witness of this, and we shall use it as our testimony. So let's drop down to the 3rd chapter. There are many people who tell fables. Some say that the Indians were born of springs of waters. Others say that they were born of caves, or that their race is that of the gods. All of which is clearly legend and shows that they themselves are ignorant of their origin and beginnings. They always profess to have come from strange lands, and I have found this depicted in their ancient painted manuscripts, where they portray the great periods of hunger, thirst, and nakedness. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48. This fits them. With innumerable afflictions that they suffered until they reached this country and settled in it. What country? America. Back then it was called Arsereth, and that's in 2 Ezra 13. Let's read the last paragraph. Because of all these things, my suspicions are confirmed that these natives are part of the 10 tribes of Israel, which Salmanasar, king of the Assyrians, captured and took to Assyria in the time of Hosea, king of Israel, and in the time of Ezekias, king of Jerusalem, as can be read in the 4th book of Kings. It says chapter 18, but you want to read 2 Kings chapter 17, and it'll tell you all about it. And that connects to 2 Ezra 13. Where one finds that Israel was carried out of its own land to Assyria. It also says that the remote and distant country had never been inhabited before, talking about America. There was a long and tedious journey of a year and a half to the region where today are found these people, of the islands of the mainland toward the west beyond the seas. Now in 2 Kings, it says that, so we're going to read what it talked about. It talked about 2 Kings chapter 18. If you read 2 Kings chapter 17, it talks about the children of Israel when they followed vain things and worship idols and enchantments, and they were taken out of Samaria by the Assyrians. But when you go over here to 2 Kings chapter 18 verse 9, it reads, "And it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hosea, son of Elah, king of Israel, that Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against Samaria and besieged it," because Israel dwelt in Samaria. It was the head of Samaria. "And at the end of 3 years they took it. Even in the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is the 9th year of Hosea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. And the king of Assyria did carry away Israel unto Assyria, and put them in Halah and in harbor by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they obeyed not the voice of the Most High their power, but transgressed his covenant, and all that Moses, the servant of the Most High, commanded, and would not hear them nor do them." And 2 Ezra picks up right where this left off. Let's go backwards and let's find out what happened during the days of Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 10. They made this journey. I'll read it. Verse 22. "For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish." And that's where the Phoenicians came out of. And Tarshish came out of the Phoenicians. "With the name of Hiram. Once in 3 years." See that? came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. It says here, once in 3 years, so split that in two. So divide 3 years, that's 1 year and a half. Just like it says here. So it took a year and a half to get there and a year and a half to get back. So they knew the routes. Other evidence found in Holy Writ that can be cited to prove this idea is that the Most High, through Hosea, had promised to multiply these people like the sands of the sea. And the fact that they have taken possession of the world shows clearly and manifestly how great was this multiplication. So we know that Israel is like the sand of the sea, like the stars. But leaving the biblical text and coming to what all of us saw in this country, a thing that amazed us was the number of people found here. This was observed by the Spaniards who came early to the country. Before the Great Plague, smallpox, when so many people died that not even a third of the Indians who had existed here survived. And this does not include innumerable men, women, and children who had been killed by the Spaniards during the conquest a few years earlier. I'm going to share a story with you. Let's go to it real quick. Let me take you to this book, The Image of the Black in Western Art from the Age of Discovery to the Age of Abolition by Jean Michael Massings, Europe and the World Beyond. But let me show you who the editors are. David Beinman and Henry Louis Gates Jr. So they did a 1-2 on us. When we see some of this history, they're going to change the names, change the dates, and write people as anonymous instead of telling you who they truly are. Let's go to page 153. Let's start here. Check this out. From the beginning of the colonization of Hispaniola, black slaves escaped from their masters to join Indian groups in more remote areas. Such maroon communities were often autonomous and feared by the settlers. Intermarriage between blacks and Indians was frequent in these areas. We did marry into each other, intermarriage. We spoke the same language, Hebrew, which were closed to Spaniards and often ruled according to African customs. A painting by Adrian Sanchez, Gak, dated 1599, represents Francisco de Aroba, the ruler of these communities, age 56, and his two sons, Pedro, age 22, and Domingo, who was 18. An inscription notes that the work was commissioned by a judge of the Audiencia in Quito, Juan del Barrio de Sepulveda, and sent to Philip III of Spain to commemorate the subordination to the Spanish crown and Christianization of the Maroons of Esmeraldas of the Kingdom of Quito, now Ecuador. So this was in Ecuador. Ecuador is south of where the Olmecs were. In Ecuador, slithers around into Colombia, which goes into Panama. This quite exceptional work is the earliest signed and dated South American oil painting of blacks. In his letter to the king, Barrio mentions that the locals are fine figures of men, agile and fleet of foot. They usually wear flat gold necklaces and the nose rings, the hoops in their ears, the rings in their lower lips, and beards of the studs in their noses. And others beside in their cheeks are all of gold, and the Indian men and women are the highest rank in the said province. And some other Indian women dress with similar ostentation, and people say that their necklaces, chains, and clothing are made of fishes' teeth and other shells. Check this out. The coastal region of Esmeraldas saw a major demographic change with the shipwreck. Sometime after 1570, This was before the Atlantic slave trade to the Americas, of a Spanish slave ship sailing between Panama and Peru. The slaves who survived, who came originally from Africa, quickly conquered the country. I'll say that again. The slaves who survived, who came originally from Africa, which were Israelites, mind you, these were Israelites who came from West Africa, quickly conquered the country, enslaving, but also intermarrying with the native Indians. How did they quickly conquer the country? They never enslaved them. Those were their brethren. They showed them new ways, new techniques, where they became enslaved to the new ways and the new techniques that these Africans were bringing over to the Americas. By the end of the century, these zombos, the Spanish term for people of African and Indian descent, or Negro and Indian descent, controlled most of the Esmeraldas region, constituting a threat to Spanish rule. Juan del Barrio de Sepulveda traveled to the area, and on his return to Quito, which was in Ecuador, claimed to have convinced 5,000 zombos to recognize the Spanish crown. He was accompanied by the two principal caciques, Indians, who were traders, Don Francisco de Aroba and Don Sebastian de Yescas, who formally recognized the sovereignty of Spain. So these two indigenous Indians became traders to their own people. And this is nothing new. When you read the first book of Maccabees, the first chapter, it says that Israelites start betraying their own brethren. So this is nothing new. So we were doing it in the Americas as well. So did you understand what happened here? That these Negroes came here and they basically took over the whole country and started having children upon children upon children, where the demographics of the people changed. All right? Judah and Israel were oppressed together. All right? Even to this day, Judah and Israel were oppressed together. Here's an example of the indigenous Indians of various shades. You got those from Quito, from Aztec, and then you got the Negroes, right? They were working together. You can see them working together here. All right? They were working together in unison. I want to reiterate this part, that when these two got together, the Spanish term for people of African and Indian descent controlled most of the Esmeraldas region, constituting a threat to Spanish rule. They were giving them the heads up on who was trying to enslave them next. The Jaguar period, they was trying to tell them, beware of the conquistadors, those coming from Spain. This is why they posed as a threat. They changed the demographics of the whole region, marrying their women. They were intermarrying each other. So the children were being born. Let me show you a picture of the children born. Yeah, right here it says Adrian Sanchez Gaquique, Francisco de Aroba with his sons Pedro and Domingo, Ecuador, 1599, Madrid, Museo of America. These are his sons. They're in their finest dress right here. Okay, look at their spears. They're in their finest dress. Look at the earrings, the nose rings. Look at the garments. This is their finest choice pieces of garments. Don Fran de Roby, Dodo, these are his sons, these two gentlemen here. These were Latinos, all right, considered Latinos. But they were Israelites, okay? Let's go back here to page 156, and notice what I highlighted here. It says, the golden nose and earplugs, which they had in their ears, however, are typical ornaments of Indian chieftains. Circular earrings hang from the top of the ears of all three, while those hanging from the lobe are a crescent shape. See that? Dan Francisco has a crescent hanging from his nose, while his two sons have other nose ornaments, including little gold discs inserted into the flesh and long hanging double ornaments, and their upper lips pierced with rings. So he looked just like Christ. This is C, from the Negro head worshipped by Aztecs, which represents Christ. Remember in Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 7, it says, "And blessed be the voice of Judah. To him will thou brethren praise, and be thy help." So they knew that Judah was feeding them with information to prepare for the enemy. That's why. And that's why I said again on page 156, I'll read it again. Constituting a threat to Spanish rule, because the whole country was prepared for the Spanish coming in to conquer them. All right, this is page 9. It reads, "All of them except the Aztecs who remained behind due to a divine command which will be spoken of later out of the 10 tribes, Issachar stayed behind. These people affirmed that the Most High had promised them this land, for they are the people he held near and best beloved, like the tribe of Judah among the Jews. The Aztecs, faithful to the divine order, did not abandon the place of the caves," because this is where they dwelt. When they went to that land, they found caves to dwell in, and they wrote all of the things of the Bible on the cave walls. "The Aztec, faithful to the divine order, did not abandon the place of the caves for 302 years. So the other tribes came first and took possession of this land. The Aztecs came to..." This is page 324, and this is the notes of the Aztecs. Let's see. It reads at the top here, "The concepts which Duran expresses on the Hebrew origins of the natives of the Americas are by no means original. The feeling that the American Indian was the result of a long migration from the Near East was a favorite among chroniclers from the time of Columbus. Belief in the 10 lost tribes of Israel, based on vague texts in Genesis, persisted until the 19th century, during which its chief exponent was Lord Kingsborough." Let's go to 2. Let's drop down to here. "Many Aztec books were destroyed during the conquest by the Spaniards and their native allies. Others were later burned by the Spanish missionaries, who feared that the ancient books might keep the natives' religion alive. Still others disappeared during centuries of neglect and during the revolutions and vandalism of the 19th century. 16 authentic pre-Columbian codices are now known to survive. All of them are in Europe, of all places. This is where they are." That concludes this book of the Aztecs. Let's check out another book. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 17. And this is concerning the 10 tribes who came to the Americas. Listen to the prophecies. This is verse 17. "His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim." Ephraim are the 10 tribes. "And they are the thousands of Manasseh." These are the 2 sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. But the 10 tribes were also known as Israel. Also, they were known as Ephraim, mainly because the name Ephraim meant to be many, to multiply. This is verse 18. This is Zebulun in Panama. "And Zebulun," he said, "rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents." When the tribes came to Mesoamerica, they all dwelt in tents. They also went into the caves. "They shall call the people unto the mountains. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness." As we read in the book of the Aztecs, 6 of the tribes left and went to the mountain, which was the mountain in Mexico City. That was the first mountain they went to, and they dwelt there. Then they scattered again, and tribes went further. It reads, "For they shall succor the abundance of the seas and treasures hid in the sand." And of Gad, this is the Northern American Indians, Native Americans. And of Gad he said, "Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. So he dwelleth as a lion. He teareth the arm with the crown of the head." Gad went into Northern America, and he took the largest part of the land. He didn't take Central America, but he went up into North America. 3 tribes were left down with Ishkar, below Ishkar. But Gad went to the north, and he took the largest part of the land, which was North America. He dwelleth as a lion. Gad sat as a lion in the northern Americas. He teareth the arm with the crown of the head. Gad has a crown of feathers, and sometimes he would hide his knives within his feathers, and at times they would call each other blood brothers, where they would take that knife and cut their arm and merge their cut arms together to form blood brothers when they made a pact or when they made a deal. And he provided the first part for himself, meaning America, because there, in a portion of the lawgiver was he, seated. And if you look at the Mohawks were the main tribes of the Native Americans. They were considered the lawgivers. All the other Indians would flee when they saw the Mohawks. And he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of the Most High and his judgments with Israel. And of Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's whelp. He shall leap from Bashan. And of Naphtali, and Dan was dwelling in the islands. And of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with blessings of the Most High, possess thou the west and the south. So Naphtali was dwelling in Chile all the way up to Ecuador. Also went further into the islands. This is a book called Waipio or Waipaio Valley, A Polynesian Journey from Eden to Eden by Jeffrey L. Gross. We're going to go to page 81. Page 81. And let's read here. It reads, this is where Naphtali went as well. So in Chile and Argentina, the tribes of Naphtali also went further into the islands. Remember, it says that they went to the far west. It reads, Jacob's 12 sons became the ancestors of 12 tribes of Israel, according to Abraham Fernander. The Polynesians are descendants of the youngest of the 12 sons of Kilu Almanu, or Benjamin. Others believe the Polynesians descended from the Naphtali tribe. Naphtali is a hind, doe, let loose, who giveth goodly words. Genesis 49 and 21, which is the prophecy chapter of the 12 sons of Jacob. The motion of a deer represents Polynesians traveling through the oceans from island to island. Still others believe Polynesians are remnants of the tribe of Dan, the Phoenicians' sea people. Both Naphtali and Dan were sons of Jacob, Bilhah, maidservant of his second wife Rachel. In the legend of the Marquise Islands, there is a tradition of the people having traveled from an ancient homeland located far to the west, and they are descendants of the 2 eldest sons Toko, the original Marquesan, and the first Taki, believed to have been the biblical Jacob, grandson of Apana, the biblical Abraham. The group of Proto-Polynesians who left Near East at a later time eventually became the third wave of Proto-Polynesian migrations. They became the Iraqi or Ari, and Polynesians. Iraqi religious customs and temples show correlations with Egyptian Israelite traditions. So we know that the Israelites came from Egypt, and whatever captivity they went in, they always likened themselves to the Egyptians, no matter what, even when they came to the Americas. So we have to understand that we are scattered all over the globe to the four corners of the earth, the 12 tribes of Israel, but mainly North, Central, and South America, Africa, India, and to the islands. But those areas are where we are predominantly scattered to, all over the world. And of Asher, he said, let Asher be blessed with children. This is in Colombia. They multiply. Asher even multiplied with the enemy. And of Asher, he said, let Asher be blessed with children. In the integration of the Negro, which was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they merged with Asher and had many children in this land. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass. While Brazil, when you hear the word Brazil, it comes from the word brass, brazo. In Brazil, the mountains are full of iron and brass and oil. And as thy days, so shall thy strength be. So the 10 tribes were all together in the Americas. And when Judah, Benjamin, and Levi came over in the transatlantic slave trade, it made the prophecy become fulfilled. We were all taken into captivity in the Americas, North, Central, and South America. Although we were scattered all over the globe and to the islands, we were predominantly sent here to make this country great. 100 years later, the slave trade grew and got stronger. And this is when the captivities of all the tribes start to be scattered to and fro as splintered people. This is a book called Africans and Native Americans, a language of race and the evolution of red black peoples by Jack D. Forbes. So we're speeding up 100 years. Let's go to page 56. And this is concerning the 10 tribes. As the English became more involved in the African slave trade, they also became more ruthless in terms of seizing Americans. In 1663, William Hinton kidnapped several Americans from South Carolina and carried them to Barbados, where two of them, Shadul and Wamini, were seen in 1666. From 1670 onward, the English of South Carolina engaged regularly in the American slave trade, sending natives in the tens of thousands to the West Indies and other markets. So these are Native Americans being sold on ships to the islands and to parts of Africa. In 1674, a group was sent to Jamaica. In 1693, a Cherokee delegation at Charleston requested the return of their relatives who had been taken to Jamaica without apparent success. Most of the slaves were from Florida or the Mississippi area, Choctaws, for example, and were a major source of income to the English. So the Choctaws of Mississippi and Florida were taken into Jamaica. These are Native American Indians. See that? These are our brothers. We intermarried with these brothers and sisters. This is why every other black family says, oh, I got Indian in my family. This is why. American slaves from Virginia, North Carolina, and other areas were also sold to the West Indies and Bermuda. Virginia laws of 1660, 1711, and 1723 specifically referred to enslavement and transportation to a foreign country or to the West Indies as a punishment for Americans. So everybody didn't die by smallpox, okay? A lot of the Native American Indians, the indigenous Indians, were sold on slave ships to other parts of the world, Africa, Europe, and the islands. During all of this period, Americans were held as slaves or were being enslaved in Brazil. This was true in the Amazonian region, where Native American labor was in constant demand for the Para Sierra area. One Jesuit estimated that 3 million Indians were descended as slaves. 3 million. So a lot of the American Indians were sold down into Brazil as well. 3 million Indians were descended as slaves from the Rio Negro alone in the century up to 1750. While this figure may be exaggerated, there is no question but that some Portuguese possessed more than 1,000 American slaves each. So there was a lot of Native Americans being put on slave ships. It wasn't just us Negroes, but the Native Americans. And some of the Native Americans looked just like us Negroes, and some looked just like the tiny copper Indians. All right, check this out. This is Native Americans being sold to the Aztecs, Mexicans. Look at this. In the Spanish Empire and the independent republics established therefrom, slavery of semi-slavery also continued from the late 17th through the 19th century in spite of laws prohibiting such. Along the northern frontier of Mexico, slavery continued during the 1690s and persisted until the 1860s, primarily involving Apaches, Navajos, Paiutes, Yavapai, and other border nations whose resistance made them subject to being captured. Some natives from the region were shipped to the West Indies, while others, such as the Yaqui in the 1880s, were sold to the Yucatan. They were sold back to the Aztecs, their brothers. Because we know that the Native Americans and the Mexicans at one time started the feud because of the Spanish down in Mexico took over. And they were fighting against the Americans here, who were under the French rule and under the British rule. After the abort of Tupac Amaru rebellion in Peru in 1781-83, however, the Inca nobility suspected of disloyalty to Spain were executed, imprisoned, or shipped to exile in Spanish Sahara. So in the Sahara Desert in Africa, some of the Incas, they were shipped there, and they were people of color. They were shipped to Africa. Thus, some Americans reached still another part of Africa. See that? So we were shipped all over the place. So when the Most High returns, guess who he's coming back for? He's coming back for the northern and southern kingdom of Israel, which are the kingdom of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and the kingdom of Ephraim, which is Israel of the 10 tribes. He's coming back to redeem them from the hands of the wicked who put them in slavery. See that? This is why we say of Negroid and indigenous Indian descent, because we were oppressed together. Okay? This is page 266. I'm going to read the second paragraph. This is concerning American-African contacts in Africa and Europe. This is what happened to a lot of the Native Americans. The presence of Native Americans in Europe and Africa in significant numbers from the 1490s onward has been overlooked by the scholarly world in general. So here we are talking about Negroes going into captivity. The Native Americans also were taken into captivity. And it's kind of like washing dominoes on a table, getting ready to play a new game. The Native American Indians were washed into Africa. Let's go down to the third paragraph. Native Americans' contact with Africa intensified as Angola, which is in Africa, and West Africa became ever more entwined with Brazil, and especially with direct Dutch use of Native American auxiliary troops in the conquest of Angola, Elmina, Ghana, and the Portuguese islands of the Gulf of Guinea, 1639 to 1640. We have been able to outline the possible extent of Native American presence in places such as Angola, Ghana, Spain, Portugal, and Netherlands, and so on, but we have not exhausted the subject. There it is. So you see, as I see, the Native Americans have been placed under the yoke of iron just like we were, which makes them part of Deuteronomy 28. They are our brethren, the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Keep that in mind. This book is called They Came Before Columbus by Ivan van Sertima. This book was copyrighted in 1976. I want to show you something about Mexico. You see all these heads? These are all the Olmec heads that were in Mesoamerica, southern Mexico. Look at all of these heads. Now let me read the insert down below. Negro heads in pre-Christian Mexico. When did pre-Christian Mexico begin? When did the origins of Christianity take off? Around 325, the time of Constantine. So this was pre-Christian Mexico. Christianity, especially Catholicism, began its formal introduction to Mexico with the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. From Tlaxcala, from Tabasco, from Chiapas, from Guerrero, and from the central plateau of Mexico. Look at the faces, look at the noses, look at the ears and the lips, look at the hair. So all of our fellow brethren of indigenous Indian and Latinos who speak evil about their brothers, which is the Negroes, which are Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and Simeon, they're really talking about themselves. They don't know that they're vexing themselves when they speak against us. They are us and don't even realize it unless they are mixed with Spaniard. Look at this one. It reads, Plate 3, African women in pre-Columbian Mexico. Compare modern Nigerian women with Negroid Tehuticán head. Classic period, wearing head kerchief and earrings. Pre-classic head from Pacific coast of El Salvador. Look at that. Seated black woman from Veracruz, that's in Mexico. Classic period, compared Negroid sun dancer from Veracruz, classic, with, this is figure F, Negro Egyptian head of Queen Tai, mother of Tutankhamun. So look at all these figures, right? D, E, C, and F, which we have spoke about here. Notice the noses, the eyes. And you know, there's a lot of Mexican women who look just like this, that have these features of African women. Okay? Skin complexions have degraded over time, but they look the same. Look at this sister here. Our stock was really prominent in Africa, the Israelites. But those who came to the Americas after leaving the Assyrian captivity and the Persian captivities, they began to change in complexion. There's a lot of intermarrying going on. Understand that in Mexico and parts of Mesoamerica, men were allowed to have multiple wives. And some of the men, if you do your research, you'll find out that the kings had over 100 wives. So just imagine how many children they had and what they came out looking like. Negro Mongola, this is, look at this figure. It reads Negro Mongoloid mixtures in pre-Columbian Mexico. Dead man from Veracruz. Note hair, goatee, beard, and mouth. Classic period. Veracruz head, showing the Negroid strain. Classic period. Look at that. All of these are from Mesoamerica. Mandingo head in 14th century Mexico, made by the Mixtecs from Oaxaca. Joshua Saenz collection, Mexico City. Look at that. Take note. Look at these heads. Figure A, figure B, figure C, figure D. Take note. Take note. Upper row. Negroid hands with vivid scarification. A. Veracruz, classic period. Note headdress. Note headdress. Tattoo head on upper right belongs to collection of pre-Columbian art at Tulane University in New Orleans. Bottom row. Negroid head worshipped by Aztecs. Worshipped by Aztecs as representative of their god because it had the right ceremonial color. Negroid mask of Olmec period. Take note. Now, we went over this already. These brothers, we know that they went into we know that these brothers went into Ecuador. That's the father, and those are the two sons. And these two sons came from Indian women, indigenous Indian women. These are the ships that the Phoenicians came along on. Massive ships. Now, notice this figure. This is in Mexico, in Mesoamerica. Notice what it says. Plate 14. Boat on head of Semitic figure from a stele in Capiche. Compare with Phoenician ships in late dynastic Egyptian period. This is down in Mesoamerica. That's a ship. Okay, they looked at these things as major transportation. This could have been advertisement. Never know. Or it could have symbolized power by him wearing that ship on his head. Power. Control of the oceans. Let's look over here. Plate 16. Medieval African smoking pipes, similar in design to American pipes. This one's from Dahomey. This one's from Africa's coast. Ashanti, Lagos, different parts of Africa. And they have these same pipes in America. Check out these two figures. These are African men. Possibly Israelite men. Possibly Israelite men with beards. See that? Israelites had a law to wear beards. No other nation but us had that law. This is before Islam. Bearded Negroid wanderers, or Israelites, wanderers in medieval Mexico. From the Mixtec codes, Dorenberg, 14th century. Note, beards, lips, noses of these foreigners who are represented with black skins. While pictorial representations here are not as photographically realistic as some of the terracotta portraitures, alien and distinctive features are emphasized. This is actually on the wall, and they copied it here. But this was a wall painting and not a sculpture. And this is what they gathered. Notice the color is different from the wall. The color of the, notice the color on the individuals are different from what's on the wall. Look at this. Take note. Take note. Take note. All of this is in America. Take note. Plate 18. Remember, there is a scripture in Jeremiah 31. It says that, where is it? Let me get it. We have to keep this in mind. Yeah, I flip right to it. That's the spirit. Jeremiah 31, verse 27. Behold, the days come, saith the Most High, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and with the seed of the beast. So who is the seed of the man? All the other nations. But Judah, it says the days come, he will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah. So the house of Israel and the house of Judah slept with the enemies, and they also slept with the seed of man. See that? And who was the beast? The beast was the last one to come over. He is 666. He is the Edomites. And what that means is that there's going to be intermarrying, which is going to prophetically create the tares and the wheat. The tares and the wheat. And read about that in Matthew 13. You'll get the understanding of that. Tares and the wheat. And I almost went right over it, but notice or take note. There they worship the black Christ, whom they refer to in private as Ekuah, God of merchants, husbandmen, and travelers. So they knew who the black Christ was. All right. So they knew who the black HAMASHAYACH was. And this is why you see the 12 tribes of Israel looking the way that they do. They are the wanderers. And this is the HAMASHAYACH. Look at this. Phoenician-looking merchant captain found engraved on the stele beside Negroid stone heads at La Venta, 800-700 BC. So this happened a long time ago. See that? Olmecs. Right in Mexico. Right before Guatemala and Panama. These are the descendants of the Olmec rulers in America. Look at that. Descendants of the Olmec rulers. A mixture of Ishkar and all the other tribes together. This is in Veracruz. More heads of the Olmecs. And of course, y'all know what these are. This is pre-Columbian area. Pre-Columbian era. Look at that. This is in Mexico. Black Warrior Dynasty in Mexico. The Olmecs. Negroid stone. Olmecs. See that? Treslopotes. And this is a map. This is how you know they travel from Africa to the Americas. This is before the Europeans got a hold of it. It says, the Piri Reis map drawn in 1513 from earlier maps found in the Library of Alexandria by the Turkish Admiral Piri Reis. It depicts fairly accurate latitude-longitude relationships between the Atlantic coastlines of Africa and South America. Reading of longitude was only achieved by Europeans in the 18th century, so this is way before the Europeans came about. All right, before they started navigating across the big seas. Africa, routes into the Americas from Africa. So keep in mind that the Greeks, all of their information that they got from other countries. They stole from every country that they overcame in wars. So they took all their documents, they took all their scribes, they took all their maps. So these maps that we're seeing today, that was pre-Alexandria time, they got all of this stuff from the Babylonians, from the Persians, from the Phoenicians, from the Egyptians. That's where they got these maps.
Why do you wish to sail west? to open a new route to Asia. Asia is the richest kingdom, the land of spices and gold. At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent. The journey takes a year. Or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands.
How can you be so certain?
The calculations of Toscanelli, Marin de Tir, Esdras.
Esdras is a Jew.
So what's worse?
2 minutes, and already you're a dead man.
For telling the truth?
Yes. We are burning people for less.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.